I got to be honest with you, man. Week 9, a little bit of a lackluster Saturday. We didn't have a ton of monumental upsets. We're going to go ahead and call this setting the stage Saturday. A lot of results really set up what's going to happen in the final month of the regular season. We've got 5 weeks left. That's it. We got to cherish every moment. This is Always Talking Ball. Tyler, Nohe, Lance Barton. Real quick before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe on whatever platform you're tuning in on. Make sure you're following us on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Weekly recap episode is brought to you by Frostbuddy, frostbuddy.com/ATB. They got a lot of cool teams on there, got a lot of good stuff for can coolers. They got some like tumblers. They've got, Stanley type stuff. Really cool designs over there. So frostbuddy.com/ATB. We're going to get to our week 10 top 12 rankings where we have a new number 1 team this weekend for like probably the 4th or 5th time this year. And we're going to give you some early betting lines via guess to spread as always. But let's start off talking about what happened in Baton Rouge last night, where Brian Kelly's seat is, I think, currently on fire. A&M rolls through Baton Rouge and just rolls the Tigers. 49-25 was the final score. I'm not even sure that it was even that close. They took the starters out when it was 49-18. I mean, same thing happened as last year. LSU was up 18-14, and then before you know it, it's the 35-0 run by the Aggies. Main stats here: 224 rushing yards for the Aggies to only 60 for LSU. They look pretty good at times. Harlem Berry looked pretty good in his start, but the offensive line for LSU is just so bad. It's just so bad. I mean, they allowed 7 sacks for that A&M defense. A&M lost the turnover battle 2-0 and still won the game by 24 at night in Tiger Stadium, where very few people have done that. Alabama is one of the few teams to do that. A&M, let's talk about them first, man. They look for real. You were on this one. You got A&M right. I doubted them. I thought LSU would rise to the moment with their season basically on the line, with their coach's job possibly on the line. I thought that they would get the job done. And it just didn't happen, man. Like A&M's for real. Like they are legit, about as legit as you can get, man. I mean, they got dudes everywhere.
Yeah, the saying that I like to use, so and so is a wagon. Texas A&M is a wagon
Yeah,
right
and it's
now.
good for those A&M fans, man. Like they've been through a lot. They've been through the Jimbo years recently. They've been through a lot. They've been through a lot of 8-4 seasons, 9-3 occasionally, and like they deserve it.
Yeah, and let's just start with the fact that when you really look at this A&M team as a whole, their offensive line, the Maroon Goons coming into the year, had some of the most experience in all of college football. They lived up to the hype. They've got 5 running backs that are all good. They've got guys that going into the season that we didn't even talk about, like a Jamarian Morrow that's really good at tailback for them. We didn't even talk about him coming into the year. We talked about Reuben Owens and Le'Veon Moss and Amari Daniels and E.J. Smith. And then here's this Jamarian Morrow who's just tearing it up now for them. Also, Marcel Reed in the QB run game. He had over 100 yards rushing in this game and 2 rushing tutties. So you've got that part of the game. And then now you've got, again, you alluded to it earlier this year after they beat Notre Dame, that nobody upgraded a position group more than A&M did through the transfer portal by bringing in KC Concepcion and Mario Craver at the wide receiver position for A&M. They went from being big and slow, non-explosive at all in the passing game, to now they're arguably the most explosive team in college football. And it's not just the passing game. Like the extension of the running game with the quick passes, the end arounds, the reverses, kickoff and punt returns. Just basically any time that those 2 cats and a couple of others, Casey Concepcion, Mario Craven, and a few others, just gets their hands on the football, it's they're literally one missed tackle or one crease away from making you pay in a hurry. And dude, they really are a team. If they don't turn the football over and beat themselves, it's going to be hard to beat them, man. And it's just like, again, defensively too. We talked about it earlier in the season. We felt like that when they were struggling a little bit defensively earlier in the year, that was a side of the ball that of teams that were contenders that we thought would get better because of Mike Elko and who he is and just the respect we have for him. And they have. The overall just, dude, week after week, the amount of havoc they're creating, the negative plays they force and sacks, tackles for a loss. They had double-digit tackles for a loss and 7 sacks in this game. But, like, they're doing it every week, man. They just every week. They've got multiple guys. Herbie talked about it last night during the game. Later in that game, they had guys said this. Herbie goes, "This is their third wave of defensive linemen that are coming in the game and wreaking havoc in the backfield right now."
Yeah.
So yeah, they're a wagon right now. They would have to completely self-destruct at this point and have multiple bad injuries to not make the college football playoff at this point in the season. Being still undefeated, only what they've got at Texas left. I think they've got at Missouri
Yep. South
still
Carolina
left.
at home.
Yeah. So they've got some, some still because again, the SEC week in and week out right now, there's always seems like to be another team waiting that's a marquee matchup. Or it could be a team that is in wounded animal mode that can, or as you say, wounded cock mode there in Columbia that could put you on the ropes if you're not careful. But yeah, dude, this A&M team's a wagon. Mike Elko's got it rolling. Colin Klein, the offensive coordinator, when they brought him in from Kansas State, the reason they brought him in is showing right now. And Marcel Reed, man, I mean, yeah, he made some boneheaded mistakes. One of the interceptions that he threw, you're just like, bro, what are you doing? Like, what is that? But they're just so explosive that they make up for it. And their defenses make plays and force you into mistakes so much that they make up for it. I did a good job there by focusing on the team that won the game first instead of
Yeah.
focusing on what everybody else wants to talk about now, which is Brian Kelly.
Yeah.
Dude, you said it best. I don't know that for all the talk that everybody wants to talk about the Hugh Freezes, the what's his face up at Wisconsin, going blank.
Yeah. Luke Fickle.
Luke Fickle. I don't know as far as like the expectation for a program with the talent that the team has as a whole, with all of the resources and money that was put into the team. Number one transfer portal class. We all know if you're going to get something like that high of a portal class, what that means. That means that obviously you had some boosters and folks that were putting some pretty big financial dollars into your program behind your staff to be able to go out and get those players through the transfer portal like LSU did this offseason and to just get waxed again. It's the second year in a row that LSU was in a playoffs on the line in Death Valley at night against a rival with your back against the wall, had to have it game. They got their absolute cheeks clapped last year against Alabama at home, like beat to death, coming off a bye. And then this year they bring in A&M and get their cheeks clapped again. Like you said, 49-25, bro, it wasn't that close at all.
Yeah.
But that was a complete and utter mismatch. The fact that they had a lead at the halftime was because Texas A&M allowed them to have the lead by making mistakes. It was about as dominant as performance. It got to the point you almost felt bad for Nussmeier with how banged up he is and just getting hit over and over and over and over again. So going into the game, LSU fans seem to be just done with Brian Kelly. Again, man, it's kind of like what we talked about with James Franklin after the loss that they had to Oregon. Well, I don't know what you're selling to. It was the loss to UCLA at UCLA when they came back home, and then they ended up losing Northwestern after that. I just don't know what you're selling, man, to a fan base and to donors and to people at this point, to the point to where you can just make it to where it's not going to be toxic. Like I saw Peter Burns tweet out. I'm just curious your take on this. Well, the best thing he can do, of course, it's the best thing he can do now. But like seriously, if you're a diehard LSU fan, if LSU goes out and beats Bama in a couple of weeks, is all forgiven at this point for what he's done? No, in my opinion, no. I think that's that. Honestly, hell no. At this point, like he's out of lives. Like whatever video game you want to play, you get 9 lives and all these different, you get all these different chances. No, he's out of it, in my opinion, at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he's in his 4th year. So I think you kind of know the deal. The situations at LSU, Penn State, and Clemson are just so eerily similar. And Dabo's got championships to back it up. So that's what he's falling back on. He's falling back on all the past and talking about how great he has been. Franklin didn't have that. And we saw what happened to him. Brian Kelly doesn't have that. And we think we know what's going to happen with him.
And he's not even he's not even well liked. Like,
no,
Franklin at least had some people that seemed, the fans didn't necessarily love him, but he had people that seemed to be important that really liked him. I just don't know at this point who really likes Brian Kelly.
I know none of his assistant coaches do.
Honestly, man, everything that everybody has said about him in the past, and I've actually defended him on here some, but everything that has been, I see that little smirk, that little grin on your face right now. Oh man, I love it. You can't even hide it. I love it. But all of the stuff that everybody has said about him for years all showed up last night. He was going from every time that a punt return would happen, poor special teams coordinator for LSU, just giving it to him. Then something happened with the defense. He'd walk over there to Blake Baker. They had 12 men on the field, and they still couldn't stop a play. It was like a tight end. I think it was a wildcat formation with the tight end or something. They scored a touchdown. They were offsides, and they had 12 men on the field. And you see Brian Kelly over there with the red, purple face, just to Blake Baker. And he had the incident that he had with Nussmeier, too, on the sideline. He was getting into Nussmeier. Again, just basically looked like he was just blaming everybody except something.
Yeah. They got the split screen with him and Joe Sloan. You know, he's talking to Joe Sloan, obviously, up in the that right there should tell you he doesn't know what's going on with his program. Like on game day, he doesn't know what's going on. He's got to go ask, what's going on? What's going on here? What's going on, Blake? Why are we having breakdowns? Like,
you can read his lips. He's saying, "What's happening? What's happened? What
yeah,
happened? What happened?" Was what he was multiple different times. But and then kind of like this banging the fist on the table after the was it the USC loss last year? After they got down $1 billion, he then threw his headset, almost like, "Well, hang on, let me make sure I show everybody how mad and frustrated I am." But yeah, dude, I at this point, I don't know. The only thing that I do. What's his face on Barstool? That's the big LSU guy. Is it T-Bob? T-Bob Haybear?
yeah, T-Bob. Yeah.
Yeah, where he said that, "I'm sorry, at some point, like, we're not paying somebody, in my opinion, 50 something $1 million, like, to not work or to, like, go somewhere else and do something else." But I just don't know how I'm gonna use one more time, the same thing I said about Franklin. I don't know what you would be selling to an entire rabid, diehard, passionate fan base, one of the best in the country at LSU, recruits, everything else, what you'd be selling at this point.
Well, there's got to be something in that contract and that buyout, like there was with Franklin. Whereas if he gets a job within a year or something, it lowers down drastically. Like there's got to be something in there. I mean, I would be shocked if there's not. But honestly, man, like this all it couldn't be happening to a nicer guy. You know, so it's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. This is the same guy, Brian Kelly, who really wanted everybody to believe that Notre Dame was holding him back from winning championships. And like you said it, man, he's continuing to get beat again and again and again and again in big games at LSU while Marcus Freeman's up in South Bend doing his thing. Just hasn't worked out.
Question for you. I was actually thinking about this last night. What big game, and maybe I'm just being completely whiffing on this, outside of the Alabama game where they went for 2 against him in his first year, what like big game has he won at LSU? And that was his problem at Notre Dame, right? I mean, you would know, but that wasn't his problem at Notre Dame. He always lost, like basically, like again, they get to the playoffs and get their butts kicked by Clemson and Alabama,
Yeah, but
teams
he
like
would at
that.
least win big games in the regular season. Like he big game in 2012 against Oklahoma in that playoff run. You know, he would win big games. He beat USC, beat Michigan, like, you know, some of the regular teams Notre Dame plays. But yeah, if anybody was ever more talented than him, he would lose those. But like again, like you said, there's nobody more talented right now than LSU. Like they have all the talent in the world. So and that's what everyone gave him the benefit of the doubt coaching at Notre Dame. But they're not as talented as some of these other teams. So like he's really got to coach them up. And he like really is a good football coach, right? Well, like now we're seeing like it's so weird. We're seeing the exact opposite. Like now you got all the talent in the world. You got Heisman winners at quarterback, and you've got really good defense now. But now your coaching sucks. Like what's going on? It is baffling to me. It just the fit just again everybody questioned the fit right away when it happened, and it just doesn't look like it's working out.
No, it doesn't. You better win games if you're not quote unquote like, a good fit. Like there's been other guys in SEC football that have come from other places around the country that they thought they wouldn't be a good fit because, like if somebody comes to Alabama or some of the teams in the deep south that they don't eat grits for breakfast, that they think that they can't be good at coaching football, or if, again, Nick Saban comes from Michigan State to LSU, that he doesn't eat crawfish etouffee and beignets, that he's just not going to be a good football coach. But like if you win games, people forget that
Yeah.
really quick. People
Oh, yeah.
forget that really quick. But right now, Brian Kelly's not winning any of the big games, and LSU fans are tired of it.
Another coach who started off his career kind of not winning a lot of big games, but now he's getting the job done at Ole Miss, and that's Lane Kiffin. We just talked about it 4 days ago, right? The knock on him was like, now it's like, oh, can Lane win a big game on the road? 4 days later, gets it done, right? Saturday, Norman, they get a 34-26 victory over the Sooners. Big road win over a ranked team. Ole Miss, man, they just keep plugging away. They're winning these games this year that they had struggled with last year. And they look to be in really good shape. Big stat in this one, man. We talked about it. They held that OU defensive line to just one sack. They held John Mateer to just 17 yards rushing. I know he's banged up, but that's a lot of his playmaking abilities is on the ground. And you look at the stats, and it looks like Oklahoma had some more success on the ground. They got half the rushing yards on one play. So the Ole Miss defense did their job. It was a solid game. It was a solid game in Norman, back and
Was.
forth. I mean, Oklahoma made that comeback, took the lead, and then Ole Miss gets 9 points to finish the game off. Chambliss was he's 24 for 44, so kind of hit or miss, but he made enough plays to win. And now you look at Ole Miss and how well they're set up. I mean, we got a tight race here, man. Like we got a tight race, obviously, with A&M being at the top and Alabama, with being undefeated in the SEC, and then lurking right there behind them in case one of them stumbles is Ole Miss with just one loss.
Yeah, man. Again, nope. The hottest girl at the dance that's still single, that's just sitting back wanting to know who wants to dance with her, is Lane Kiffin right now. No question. Every job that's even thinking about coming available, it's like, okay, Lane Kiffin, Lane Kiffin. Every job, even brought up, talked about, it's Lane Kiffin. Now he's going on the road, winning games like this, like you said, at Oklahoma. Went on the road in Athens and did everything but win that game. Beating LSU. When he got to Ole Miss, we talked about that the most wins in program history at Ole Miss was like 10 wins, and Lane's done it like 3 times now, won 11 games once. He's on pace to do it again this year, win double-digit games again this year. Lost all of what they lost from that very talented team last year with that bunch they had on defense they brought in through the transfer portal and the Jackson Darts and just the overall team that they had last year. You thought that they would be taking a step back this year, and here they are, just right here in playoff contention with a D2 transfer quarterback from Ferris State leading the way. I mean, let's just call it what it is, man. I mean, Kiffin, it got hyped up a lot that it was going to be the brain power of Lane Kiffin as an offensive coach versus Brent Venables, the brain power as a defensive coach, and Kiffin just schooled him.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely schooled him yesterday. And we talked about going into this game that Oklahoma, I brought up the numbers about of those offenses that Oklahoma had faced up to this point, about where Michigan was ranked in total offense, and Auburn and Texas and all these other teams, and how much better Ole Miss is offensively than those teams. So we would probably find out a lot more about Oklahoma's defense in this game. We definitely found out. Oklahoma's defensive front is still legit. They have 14 tackles for a loss in this game. They just didn't get a bunch of sacks, but they still were very active and still making a lot of plays along that defensive front. But we did find out that Oklahoma secondary is gettable. If you can get any time whatsoever as a quarterback, you can make some plays against that secondary, no question. And we also found out something that we've known really this year, but there's no doubt now. So Oklahoma had arguably the worst offensive line in the Power Four last year, them and Cal. They don't have the worst offensive line in the Power Four this year. They just suck on the offensive line this year. They're just bad.
Is their offensive line worse than LSU?
Probably not. Probably not. That's what I'm saying. They're not the worst.
Yeah.
They're just not good. And I mean, again, you can with a really good quarterback and a really good defense and things, you can, still win some games. But like, you're probably not going to win the biggest marquee matchups when you have just a booty offensive line. And that's what Oklahoma has. Mateer's running for his life constantly. He's also pretty erratic as far as his accuracy is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Very good athlete. If he's on, he's as good as anybody in the country when he's, he can make some plays, make some wow plays and stuff, but he's just very inconsistent from an accuracy standpoint, throwing the football. I think Oklahoma got exposed a little bit in this game. Let's call it what it is. I think they got exposed a little bit. I think it exposed their offensive line, and it definitely exposed a little bit of Mateer throwing the football and his inconsistencies. And we saw a really good offense against that Oklahoma defense. So still believe in Venables enough as a defensive coach to possibly right the ship a little bit defensively. When you get exposed like that, you have some things you can go work on. But unfortunately for him, now they got to go on the road to Rocky Top, where Tennessee's lost 2 home games in the last 3.5 years, both of them to a
Yeah.
team named Georgia. They still have to play at Alabama. They still have to play. I think they get Mizzou at home.
Missouri and LSU both
Yep,
at home.
Missouri and LSU both home. So again, that's 4 really good. I mean, well, 3 really good football teams, and one, if they somehow ever just a light bulb comes on, they could still be pretty solid. But yeah, Ole Miss at this point, I think would have to really screw up again to not be a playoff team.
Yeah, they've got Florida, South Carolina, then they got that Egg Bowl on the road, which Mississippi State has looked a
Yep.
lot better this year. So
Yep.
wouldn't that be something too if they got a SEC championship game berth on the line and Lebby and the boys beat them in that finale?
It
That
would
would
be
be
something because it would be something even more because Ole Miss is one of the I think it's them and Vandy are the only 2, like A&M and Missouri obviously joined the SEC back in like whatever that was, 2011, 12, something like that. Ole Miss and Vandy are the only 2 teams not to make the SEC championship game, not even make an appearance in the SEC championship game. And of course, A&M now too, but I don't really count that because Ole Miss has been there forever, one of the OGs. So if they were sitting right there, all they got to do is win the Egg Bowl to get in, and they lose it. Yikes!
well, they need to win out. Obviously, it would help if Georgia lost, but if them and Georgia both have one loss, Georgia gets that head-to-head tiebreaker. So they need like a 3 or 4 team tiebreak there to where it's like conference opponents or strength of schedule or whatever, and them get the nod there. So
But here's what's wild, man. Again, I know that you don't ever want to say this if you love competition and all that, but we can say this doing a podcast here. Kiffin actually might. Kiffin would be
he
one
was
that
he
might.
said it last year.
He actually would be maybe say
I know
this.
what you're talking about. He said it
Yeah.
last year.
If they go 11-1, absolutely. Like, no, we don't want to go to the SEC championship. Let's just stay right here. We'll host a
Rest.
playoff game in Oxford.
Yeah,
We're going to
rest
be
up a little bit.
Yeah, we'll be the 5 or the 6 seed at that point, like somewhere around that 5, 6, or 7.
Yeah.
And we're 11-1. We get to rest up. Yeah, absolutely. And that would actually probably benefit them even more in that case.
Yep. A couple years ago in 2023, when we started this podcast, the motto we adopted for Alabama that year was survive and advance. And that was it yesterday.
Yes, it was.
Alabama, survive and advance. You thought, going into that, last half of that third quarter and the fourth quarter, and South Carolina takes that 8-point lead, and you texted me like Alabama's doing literally everything they do when they lose games like this under DeBoer. And it did look like a game where you're like, I mean, we called it at the beginning of the season. We said last week that's the game you got to watch out for. Double digit favorites again, just kind of keep biting Kalen DeBoer for some reason, especially against unranked teams. But to his credit, to their credit, and thanks to some stupidity from the Gamecocks, they found a way to get the job done. 29-22. Just a very, I'm going to let you talk about it. I thought it was a very average day all around. Like, nobody was spectacular for Alabama, obviously. I mean, I didn't think South Carolina was anything special. I mean, you look at the box scores and they're right around the same total yards. Obviously, Sellers turning that ball over under 2 minutes hurts. But I mean, it was a do or die. Like it was South Carolina's Super Bowl, so Alabama had to know that going in. And honestly, they found the way to get the job done. And after that 4-week stretch they had, like that, I think that says a lot about that team.
Yeah, to find a way to win that one when everything nothing was, like I said, nothing was going right. They were having penalties in crucial moments, bad turnovers with the fumble, and then the deal on the punt that we've seen. Like, I was so mad too at the beginning when that happened. I felt like that. Gosh, who was it that got hit on the fumble? Was a player that hit. I'm going blank. It's the guy that was going to transfer to Ole Miss.
Nick Harper?
No, from Alabama. The guy that hit for Alabama. The defensive back that went to wide receiver.
Keon Sabb?
No, I'm going blank. Sorry, it's the
Mbakwe?
Mbakwe. There you go, Jalen Mbakwe. It hit Mbakwe, but like he was being shoved basically like in the back, and they showed it on the
By Nick Carver, right?
by Nick
Yeah.
Carver, and they showed it on X and all that. It should have been a penalty. It wasn't. It was pretty blatant. But either way, it still ended up being
That's SEC officiating, though. I
it
mean, you
is.
gotta overcome that.
It is. And it ended up being a fumble. Obviously, South Carolina ended up scoring on the play. They weren't the offensive line looked horrible again. Just all the stuff that they do under the board when they lose games like that on the road, all was happening. And like you said, South Carolina's miscues and Alabama finding a way to win it at the end of that game could have absolutely saved their season without
Yeah,
question. If they lose that
I
game,
mean, there's a reason why South Carolina is who they are this year. There's a reason why Mississippi State is Mississippi State this year. Like those types of teams just struggle to find a way to get the job done in those
yep,
games.
yep, I agree, 100%. I thought South Carolina's defensive line played really well. Some of that probably what, yeah, they played really well, and Alabama's offensive line played really bad. But at this point, hang on, we'll get to that more here in a second. But South Carolina's defensive front played really well. South Carolina played a very inspired, hard playing effort. They just made too many mistakes, man. And like you said, they just couldn't get out of their own way to not find a way to win that one. But in regards to Alabama in this game, I just think that they are what they are. That is my own opinion. I just think they are what they are at this point in regards to the running game on offense being just not any good. It's the offensive line when they play a really good defensive front has problems, and they're just what they are. They
You know what I
are.
looked at? You know what I looked at though? I was getting a little bored during the game yesterday, and got on team rankings, and I think I went back to his Fresno State days. His first year as a Fresno State coach, and obviously, I think last year I think they finished in the top 40 or 50 in rushing yards. But other than that, DeBoer's teams have never finished in the top 80 out of the 130 or so teams that have been in FBS over that time. They've never finished in the top 80 in rushing attack. That's just kind of been, and I think that's why his teams, they don't blow a lot of people out. They play so many close games because they just can't run the ball. I don't think they recruit offensive linemen as like run blockers. I think they want to set up that pass. Like that's what they did with Penix. That's what they want to do with Simpson and these wide receivers. I mean, they had 40 rushing yards going into that final drive
Yep.
of the game. Like
They weren't even trying to
that
run the
is just,
ball.
and I told you they weren't trying, but like that's from everything that Alabama fans have seen over the last 20 years, that's got to be one of the things that is so infuriating to them about being coached by Kalen DeBoer. Is like you want to be able to run the ball if you're in the SEC and if you're a fan of Alabama.
Yep. They had 7 carries the entire game by running backs in the game. If that tells you anything. I just think they are what they are at this point. I think the offensive line has solid effort sometimes, but when they play really good defensive fronts, they're not going to be able to run the football. And that's because the offensive line is just okay. And the running back position is just okay. Like
And I
Jam
know he's
Miller's
good, but like
fine.
you're putting a lot on Simpson's shoulders if you go that route, though. I mean,
Yeah,
he's really good, but you're putting a lot on his shoulders.
don't disagree. And now we'll get to that point. Alabama has a problem too with the lack of explosiveness on offense. Right now, finally found like Simpson's been getting all the love and all this stuff about Theismann, the last few weeks, and he's number 1 and number 2 on everybody's Heisman big board right now going into the game, and he's still going to be very highly rated in that category, in the Heisman category right now. But we saw what he so far right now. If you had to pick something that he struggles with, it's the deep ball. And Alabama hasn't really taken a ton of shots down the field this year, like deep shots. They did in this game. And he only threw one that was decent. The other ones were pretty terrible. Just call it what it is. And I think it's twofold. I think it's because defenses, like at Missouri, for example, I remember you talking about it after the game against Mizzou. They were given so much cushion and making sure that they were not going to allow Alabama to have any explosive plays in the passing game, that they were going to give up that 7, 8, 5-yard, whatever pass, but they weren't going to let you throw the ball down the field. And they were trying to dare them to either run the football or take the intermediate passing game. Well, if teams are going to be taking away the deep ball, you need to be able to run the football. Right now, they can't. The best thing that Alabama does offensively is that intermediate passing game where Ty is very accurate. But when you do that, that's when you're creating these 10 to 15 play long drives, just like that drive at the end of the fourth quarter when they literally ate up all of the clock, basically. And if they don't score and if they don't get that 2-point conversion, the game's pretty much over at that point because they can't create any explosives in the passing game right now. The only explosives they're creating are as if Ryan Williams or Jeremy Bernard or somebody breaks a tackle and takes it a little further. But like that is something that they're going to have to figure out up to this point. I just don't know if, and against a really good defensive front, I don't think they're going to be able to run the football.
Yeah.
And so that's where I do think that you can develop the downfield passing game a little bit more. But yeah, I just don't know if they're going to find that up to this point. Quietly, all of the talk has been about Ty Simpson in the offense for weeks. Shout out to our boy Slip again. He's been talking about it for weeks that the defense has been the one that week in and week out continues to show up and really is like, but they may not be the number one defense in the country or whatever. And I think it's because they're competing against Alabama defenses of the past because that's what they're used to seeing with Alabama. But this Alabama defense has been playing their butt off. And the reason they won this football game was because of how well they played in this game against South Carolina. Sure, they missed some tackles against Lenore Sellers and all that. You're going to do that against 6'5", 235-pound, run like a deer Sellers. That's going to happen sometimes. But overall, they played their butt off in that game. Overall, they played their butt off against Tennessee. They played their tail off against Missouri, Georgia, Vandy, all those teams. During this 5-game win streak, the defense has played really well. And at times, it's been the offense that has actually, again, played fine, played well at times, but there's been some kinks in the armor that they've shown that they're going to have to fix if they want to win a national championship.
The offense has been the one keeping the opponents into the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. 100%. And again, because of the lack of explosiveness, this happened against Missouri. When you have these 10 to 15 play drives where you're chewing up clock, you better score a touchdown in those deals because then if you're not efficient, if you turn the ball over or if you get penalties and stuff like that creates it to where almost like a triple option type team almost. Like it's just different because you're not running triple option, obviously. But when you're eating up all the clock and then you're not scoring, you're making it then to where your defense needs to go out and get a stop. And if you get behind, if Alabama gets behind, can they be explosive and come back? Like, I don't know. Like I said, that right now, the lack of explosiveness and the lack of the run game is something. I know they won the game. I know they're going to be probably, I haven't seen the AP poll. They're probably ranked number 4 in the country, something like that. So, I mean, I'm acting like that they just lost the game or something's like terrible. No, I'm not saying that, but I'm talking about Alabama to win a national championship. There are things that they need to fix if they're going to get to that point.
Yeah, and you look at the remaining schedule. I don't know if there is a defensive front. I mean, obviously, there's Oklahoma and Auburn, but you and I texted about it a little bit yesterday. Like that Auburn game just gets more and more scary as you see them play against teams like that on the road. But they are in really good shape. Them and A&M are in really good shape to make the SEC championship game. Both of them are still undefeated. I don't know. Again, maybe that's for another live show this week or something where we dissect, all these one-loss tiebreakers.
I'm down.
Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, Texas, like all these teams have one loss, in conference, whoever. Be interesting to see, kind of how it breaks down. So you want to get to the top 12?
Yeah, let's get to the top 12.
Let's get to the top 12. Like I said, it was a lackluster. It was setting the stage Saturday, so not a lot of games to talk about. Let's just get to our Week 10 HCB top 12 rankings. We break down the top 12 teams who we think are, standing right now as of going into Week 10. So I'll take odds, you take evens. We've got a new number 1 team. And this is just, it's a monumental podcast. Indiana's our number 1 team.
Hey, shout out to Dan Nohe, Papa Dan, and our boy Ryan.
I know they just love, they can't believe it first. And I know I talked to them before this UCLA game, and I think they're still spoken like true IU football fans. Like, I don't know. I've just seen too much IU football to where it could go wrong when they were 26-point favorites, right? This team's different. We tried to tell you in July this team was better than last year's team. 1 minute into the game, Aiden Fisher gets a pick 6, and you're like, all right, they're going to roll today. And they did, 56-6. And I know they're not playing the SEC schedule. We can have another episode and debate SEC Big Ten schedules if you guys want. If you guys want to comment on TikTok or X or Instagram or YouTube, debate Big Ten, SEC schedule, that debate's never going to end for both sides. IU's not playing the same schedule as Alabama, but they are beating teams. I mean, they have the average margin of victory of 34 and a half points per game. And we're going to talk about another team here in Oregon who played Wisconsin, who's right there with UCLA, and it wasn't as big of a drubbing as you would expect. And Siggs just doesn't. He takes every opportunity that he can to get his team focused. I mean, his first press conference last week was, "We are playing a 3-0 football team." He saw them as a 3-0 football team. They'd won 3 straight Big Ten games. They were rolling at that time.
He was right.
And
He was right about that, by the way. That I loved it when he said that, man. He was spot on. That new coaching staff had them 3-0.
yeah, and he gets his teams focused in a way that not a lot of coaches across the country can for down opponents like that. Like, that's what you should be doing to those kind of opponents, beating them by 50 points when you're favored by 26, doubling up that spread. Like, that looks really good. So, resume wise, the fact that they're winning these games the way they're winning these games, and they have that Oregon win up in Eugene in their back pocket, and you look at the remaining schedule, man, it would be a shock if Indiana is not playing in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship.
Yeah,
And
I agree. I agree. They would have to have major injuries or just self-destruct, which I don't think the second would happen, like you just said. The way Siggs and Shanahan and Brian Haynes have that group playing football, the way they have them focused week in and week out, I just don't see the self-destruct thing happening. It would have to be like some major injuries to keep them out of that spot. And watching that game too, like I just don't think that people just something random here. I don't think that people really respect the athleticism that Fernando Mendoza has. I told you when we were hyping up this Indiana team before the season, when we were talking about how Indiana's offense would be one of the best in the country again, and how we said this Indiana football team would be better going into the season on paper than they were the previous year. When I watched some tape on Mendoza at Cal, and I found out that Cal gave up the most sacks in all of college football and gave up second most tackles for a loss in all of college football, it didn't shock me, because the reason I even went and looked up that stat to begin with was the tape that I was watching on Mendoza. Was every single highlight on his tape, he was running for his life. Like, he had just defenders barreling down on him. Every throw, he was running and escaping stuff in the pocket. And it really caught me off guard that 6'5", 225, 30-pound, whatever he is, how well he can move. Like, the underrated athleticism, which obviously Curtis Rourke last year on that bum knee that he had couldn't do last year. And that's an element that Mendoza adds to this team. And it showed up yesterday. There were times in that game yesterday, man, look at him getting on the outside on that little RPO and
yeah,
stuff. Just sneaky athleticism that he's got. But all right, so at number 2, we have Gig'em, the Texas A&M Aggies. They actually are number 1 in ESPN's strength of record, and I think they've got like the number 14 ranked strength of schedule right now. I mean, like I said it earlier, Texas A&M is a wagon right now. I don't know what really you would say that their weakness is at this point. Defensive line gets after you. They force a ton of tackles for a loss. They get a lot of sacks. Offensively, they can run the football with 5 different tailbacks. They've got one of the better offensive lines in all of college football. They've got one of the most explosive wide receiver cores in all of college football. They've got one of the most explosive punt return games in all of college football. And they have a quarterback that seems to be getting better week in and week out. And if he does make a mistake, he moves on from it and he continues to play. He doesn't let that mistake turn into more mistakes like he probably used to do last year. He's very good in the dual threat game. They've got one of the better offensive coordinators in college football. So, yeah, they right now, they're not your grandmama's 8-4 Texas A&M Aggies anymore.
yep. Number 3, we got Ohio State. They were on bye. They are elite. They are absolutely elite. Their defense, as crazy as it sounds, might be better than last year's. Offense is really, really good. We've got them at number 3 because, frankly, they don't have the resume that either A&M or Indiana does. Their best win right now, I mean, gosh, you could actually argue their best win might be going up to Washington
Yeah,
and winning that game.
I think it is.
Yeah,
I personally think that win is better. I'm glad you said that, bro. That win going on the road to Husky Stadium, a team that literally never loses at home. They had the nation's longest home win streak, I think, at that time when Ohio State beat them. Huskies have won 2 straight at home since then. They just beat the brakes off Illinois at home. and Ohio State just went there and made it look easy.
Yeah.
That
Second best win.
win is better than that Texas win at home.
Yeah, and the second best one's Texas, who's getting taken to overtime by Kentucky and Mississippi State, and then, it's a lot of other teams, and then to no fault of Ohio State's, this game coming up this week on Big Noon, against Penn State, has obviously turned into what it is,
Is that
and
gonna be
it's
on Get
not.
the Spread?
It will be on Guess the
Okay,
Spread, and
good.
it's a doozy.
Okay.
Mm, but yeah, it's no fault of their own. It's no fault to Indiana for playing Penn State. I mean, Oregon had to play Penn State. Like, it's just that's just the way the breaks fall. Sometimes it happened for Indiana last year. They had Washington and Michigan on their schedule, who played in the national championship the year before, and neither one of those teams turned out to be anything but 7-5 or 8-4 teams.
Let me ask you this, if I said to you, me and my pops were talking about this at lunch after church today, Indiana, Texas A&M, or Ohio State. I know we've got them obviously how we've got them in order right now. Indiana, then A&M, then Ohio State. If anybody came up to you right now and said, "I've got Ohio State 1, Texas A&M 2, Indiana 3," or "I've got Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, Texas A&M 3," or whatever order they put them in, do you think it's egregious to have it in any order whatsoever, 1, 2, and 3?
No, not egregious. I would just want to hear, obviously your reasoning. Like if you think Ohio State is just flat out better than Indiana and A&M, and you want to put them at number one, that's great.
Yep, agreed. Just like the person
Yeah,
we're arguing with on X this morning, I jumped in there
yeah.
with you. Uh, if you want to say you think Ohio State's better, that's fine. But I don't think that you can just flat out say that their resume is better. I did look at the ESPN strength of record at Ohio State at 3, and they had their strength of schedule currently at 34 right now.
In their remaining strength of schedule?
I don't know, but it probably isn't great. But the fact that they go to Michigan, I'm sure it's somewhat. Oh, remaining strength of schedule, it is right here,
Yeah.
42.
Okay.
Yeah, which again,
So
not
you've seen I don't know if you've seen Indiana, like Freddie was talking about Indiana's remaining strength of schedule.
it's 30.
Ohio State's is worse.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. Yep. All right, good deal. So I'm doing evens, right? All right, number 4, we've got Alabama. I think we had them at 3 last week. We got a little bit of flack for that from a couple of friends. That's fine. But we got them at 4 now. We believe that the 3 teams that are ahead of them have just looked better overall, more consistently, play better football week in and week out, every single week. Bama had that 4-game stretch that is still the best 4-game stretch of anybody in college football at this point. But they did once again, as a double-digit favorite. They got the win, which is something they haven't been doing in those situations. But yeah, they just they've got some things they got to fix, man. If they want to be again a national championship team, we just talked about it a minute ago enough. But a great win to be able to find a way to win that one when they obviously were not playing good football, things weren't going right, and if anybody that knows this sport of college football and is just a lover of the entire sport, and you're not one of those that is just sitting there and just have pure just blind hate towards this overall the SEC as a whole, just a college football fan in general, you know that places like Williams-Brice, when it's packed out like it was, when they are just fired up and it's rolling, you just all you had to do was turn up the TV, man, at the start of that 4th quarter and just see what type of an atmosphere that Alabama had found themselves into because of the way that they had played in that game. And to find a way to win that was, and again, it saved their season. If they lose that game, I don't know that they do end up making the playoffs, to be honest with you. But that saved their season up to this point.
And number 5, we got Georgia, same as last week, and they were on bye this week. So really not much to say about them. They got to rest up. So did Florida for the cocktail party happening this Saturday, November 1st. And that game will also be on Guess the Spread. So get ready.
Love it. Love it. At number 6, we've got the Lane Train in Ole Miss. Ole Miss with that huge win on the road at Oklahoma. Like you said, just a massive, massive big game road win for the Rebs in that situation. They now are sitting very pretty. I've seen all the different percentage chances to make the playoffs. They're very high up there. I just don't look much into that. But honestly, when you look at their schedule, getting South Carolina at home, playing the Citadel, getting Florida at home, and then yes, the Egg Bowl at Mississippi State. I mean, again, we've seen it with Kiffin. They almost lost to Wazoo at home. They lost last year at home to Kentucky. So I'm not going to sit here and say that there's just no way that they lose a game here at the end. But I think they would have again, something really bad would have to happen for them to lose at home to South Carolina. I need to see Florida with the interim. Like we've
Yeah.
talked about, I mean, some of these teams play better with the
Yeah.
interim. Like for all the people that want to say that the problem with Florida was Billy Napier's play call, and there's people out there that believe that. Well, now they're obviously going to have somebody calling plays because Billy Napier's not there. So what if that very talented Florida football team all of a sudden starts playing to the level of their talent, like Ole Miss ran into last year when they went to the swamp at the end of the year? We don't know that. Or like you said, we've seen Mississippi State now beat Arizona State at home. They take Tennessee and Texas both to overtime in Stark Vegas. So what if they step up and play to that level and Ole Miss just isn't on that day when they're playing in the Egg Bowl? I mean, there's definitely is a possibility they lose another game. But even if they lose another game, if they're at 10-2, it's just hard for me to fathom a 10-2 SEC team not making the college football playoff. But there may
Mhm.
be so many teams that's sitting there fighting for a spot at the end of the year. Maybe that's the case. But I think the win at Oklahoma like that this week and some of their other wins they've got on the year, it'd be hard to see them not make it at 10-2. So yeah, as far as Ole Miss being a playoff team, they'd have to pretty much self-destruct at this point.
Top 6 is nothing but SEC and Big Ten teams, and if you don't like it, if you disagree, comment on the video, comment, just tell us why you don't like it. Tell us why you think we're idiots. Because at number 7, we've got BYU Cougars. This team just keeps proving us wrong week in and week out. This year, they one-upped us, man. Last year, we thought it was gonna be like last year after the Holy War, they lose a game. This couldn't be more of a spot of the year with Iowa State winning that game, and it's just Bear Bachmeyer, 356 total yards, exciting whites all around in Ames. Parker Kingston, 133 yards receiving. The defense, I mean, I know that people talk about the turnover luck for BYU and everything, but at some point you've got to talk about Kalani Sitake's defense actually forcing these 4
two
turnovers,
two
and
years in
then
a
a
row.
true freshman quarterback taking care of the ball and not turning the ball over once.
They don't beat themselves. They force you into making dumb mistakes. They, for 2 years in a row now, defensively have been, I mean, the class of the Big 12. They're just, at the beginning of that game, it looked like Iowa State was going to run away with it. They were driving again, about to go up. I think they were up 10, the possibility about to go up 17, something like that. They were about to go up pretty commanding lead. And old Rocco Beck just threw one of the worst interceptions I think I've
Yeah.
seen all year long. Unbelievable how awful the pick was. That actually was not BYU forcing a turnover on that play. That was flat out. It looked like Rocco Beck was on the take. It was such an awful throw.
He might have been knowing everything that's
Honestly, he
going
might
on
have been.
recently.
I meant to text you yesterday that there was Iowa State had no chance on a certain person that we know sports handicapping list of all these different sports handicapping services. There were multiple games of the year on like multiple on Iowa State, and
Mm,
I saw some on X too. Some big time handicappers out in Vegas that were just like max bet Iowa State, you know,
yeah.
and the Action Network, 8 zillion units, Iowa
Oh, yeah.
State, just everywhere, man. And BYU just does what BYU does. Just came in and whipped your ass on your home
Yep.
field.
Yep.
All right, number 8, we got Miami. Miami, somebody needed to, I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Freddie that texted us. Maybe it was you
Yeah.
that texted it. They said, "Will somebody please just tap Miami on the shoulder and see if they're awake?" It was 7-7 at the half. And I want to know what the locker room conversation was there because they ended up winning by a billion.
They covered.
They
They
covered.
covered the 30.
Yeah. That I almost by the way, that was like I came this close from putting out Miami minus 30 because I thought they were going to just murder Stanford.
Yeah.
And they did in the second half.
Yep.
But yeah, again, Miami's got one of the best wins of the year in beating Notre Dame at the beginning of the year. And again, anybody out there that wants to hate on Notre Dame or whatever like that, that's fine. You're just not watching that team play football. That is a very good football team. And their losses by one possession at the very end of the game against Miami and Texas A&M. For those that think that there's such thing as good losses, I can't help you either. But Notre Dame's a good football team. Okay, that's all I can tell you. If you're not watching them, that's on you. And that win that Miami had in that game is impressive. It still is impressive. Like USF is a good football team. I know they just lost to Memphis, but the way that they beat USF, just beat the brakes off of them, that's still a good, solid win. Miami's a really good football team. And resume wise, I do think that they've got better wins overall and not as bad of losses overall as the teams we're about to mention after them. So we got the Canes at number 8.
Yeah, a little bit controversial. Some might say we got Georgia Tech at number 9, one slot behind Miami, with, an undefeated record. Yesterday, they took it to Syracuse 41-16. That again, that's a game where they were favored. Brent Key hasn't always performed well in those spots. Haynes King decided to one up Bear Bachmeyer and go for 395 total yards, run for 91 on the ground. And Haynes King actually threw for over 300 yards in this game, which I don't have the stat in front of me, but he can't have many 300-yard passing games in his career with the
No.
way he plays. But again, props to Georgia Tech, man. Like I was hyping them up, ACC champion at the beginning of the ACC championship game at the beginning of the year. They've still got road trips to NC State and Boston College, and they get Pitt at home, but they're sitting pretty for a spot in the ACC championship game. And who knows? They're 11-0 going into that Georgia game. They lose to Georgia, they're 11-1. Like that still just may be enough to get them an at-large spot in the playoff, with depending on how well they play.
Dude, I saw somebody say this last week, and I can't disagree. We mentioned it on our live episode this past week. I mentioned it. They really are, as far as record wise. The only difference is they're undefeated at this point in the season. And SMU last year had one loss. That was the non conference game to BYU. But like they're very eerily similar far as like how their strength of schedule and how their ACC schedule, conference schedule set up
Yeah,
this year. Because again, they don't play Miami, they don't play Louisville, they don't play Virginia. I mean,
Virginia.
they don't play Virginia. Now, all the other teams that are at the top of the ACC this year, they don't play them. It's not their fault that Clemson ended up being booty this year,
Yeah.
but that's the case. And so Georgia Tech may go the whole year and either go undefeated or only have one loss. And they honestly don't play really any good football teams. And some of that's not really their fault. But I just thought this was interesting. Look, we love Brent Key and love the Jackets. Like we'll tout them forever on here. We got some Georgia Tech fans that listen to the show. Like you picked them to go to the playoff before the season started. You had them in the ACC championship game, so you were on them to begin with. But I just can't ignore, man, that right now they've got the third ranked strength of schedule, and that is why I personally like. I think I'm the one probably weighing it down here to where they're ninth and not a little higher. I think you had them higher than I did like in our rankings that we average out. But that's the reason I don't have them
I mean, I
above.
have an 8.
You have them at 8? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The reason I don't have them above, like, one loss Alabama, one loss Georgia, one loss Ole Miss, undefeated BYU, and one loss Miami is because those teams have played much better strength of schedules up to this point.
You,
And
you know, you know what this is going to set up though is like if they do this, and the odds makers obviously notice that, we're just going to get to bet Brent Key as an underdog in the first round of the playoffs, like that, and we're just going to get to make money because they'll probably win the game outright.
yeah, they'll either win the game outright or they'll give whoever they want as an absolute fit.
Yeah,
Dude,
yeah.
that coaching staff with extra time to prepare for anybody is a dangerous, dangerous
Mhm.
animal. No
Yep,
question about it.
yep.
Uh, and I do think they're a really good football team. I'm just not giving them a ranking of soup like much higher than this when they played the 83rd ranked strength of schedule. All right, number 10 we've got Vandy, and Vandy just a huge win against Mizzou. Wacky game. That was one that early on that I felt like Mizzou was a better football team. And then it turned around where then Vandy looked like the better football team. There's Mizzou sitting there at the goal line with a chance to go in and win, with a chance to go in and take a lead when it was 3-3. I believe they're in the third quarter, and Vandy had a ridiculous goal line stand against Mizzou there. And then it turned into this, dude, you hate to see stuff like this, but Bo Perbula with a season-ending injury. Again, man, like injuries are the worst. They're just
Is
the
it
grim reaper.
officially season ending?
I'm just saying that because he was in it
Well,
looked
they
awful.
they I think they said they had to like pop his ankle back into place or
Okay, well,
something like that.
I may have jumped the gun there. I'm not sure.
I mean, it could be.
Just the way that it looked and the fact he was in an air cast being taken off like that, that normally means something broke.
Yeah, and I don't wanna, smash on Bo Perbula more than we've already done this season, but, like, I thought Zollers came in and played pretty well. I
Oh,
thought
he's
that at times they looked better than when they did with Perbula.
dude, he absolutely is a better natural passer of the football.
Yeah,
Like, no
yeah.
question. Perbula's a better athlete. But again, now you'll see what you've got in the really highly talented and like highly recruited Zollers. But yeah, like I just this is I'm not banging on Perbula after he broke his ankle after this. I still like one of my, I live here, like, in O'Fallon, Missouri. I got a lot of friends here that are big Mizzou fans. They were texting me in that fourth quarter and after the game, just like, wanting my thoughts. And they kind of felt the same. Some of them felt the same way in regards to Zollers. And I just said, look, this is not like me banging on Perbula now that he's hurt or anything like that. I just don't think that your games against like Texas A&M coming up, against an Oklahoma coming up, you already played Alabama, these big Vandy this week, your really big games where you're trying to make a college football playoff. I just didn't think that Bo Perbula's arm was going to allow Missouri to be able to do that. But huge win for Vandy in that spot. Diego Pavia does it again, makes plays there in the second half. Vandy's defense stepped up huge. And now, man, the boogeyman of the SEC gets a chance to go on the road into Austin, Texas, and to put an absolute nail in the Longhorns' college football playoff coffin in front of the entire world in Austin this Saturday.
Will he be an underdog or a favorite? We'll find out on Guess the Spread.
Okay, there you go. There you go. But yeah, dude, that's going to be a while. I can't imagine Texas fans if they lose at home. And I know that Vandy's a really good football team and they're a top 10 team, but it's still the casual fan does not compute that's
Yeah.
a top 10 team coming in.
Yeah. Number 11. Y'all been waiting on this team, right? We got the Oregon Ducks all the way down at number 11. It's just clearly the first 2 years in the Big Ten, there's something about the Wisconsin Badgers that just strikes fear into the Oregon Ducks and Dan Lanning. Luke Fickell, even in 2 losses, seems like he has Dan Lanning's number. Oregon was favored by 31.5 in this game. And it was just a struggle. It was a struggle again, just like it was last year in Madison. Dante Moore threw for 86 yards. I know he got banged up a little bit. Austin Novosad, I think, had to come in, or maybe it was Brock Thomas. I'm not sure, but they ran the ball pretty well. But it's just you had to get docked when you struggle at home against Wisconsin like that. And really, what's Oregon's best win so far this year?
Northwestern.
Right? Yeah, Northwestern.
It is. It's Northwestern.
Northwestern has a win over Penn State. So, yeah, it's probably Northwestern. It's not a very impressive resume. They've got a couple more spots on it. They've got a bye week. Then they got at Kinnick in Iowa. That's going to be a tough one, especially if they show up like they showed up last night against Wisconsin. They've got USC and they've got Washington. You look at that remaining strength of schedule on ESPN, I think they have the 12th ranked remaining strength of schedule.
I was going to say the 3 of their last 4 games are against teams that I believe that will, if they win out, I'll move them up.
I've got all 3 of those teams in my top 25.
Yeah. So this is where that, again, I know we're going to differ. I haven't seen the AP poll yet, but I already know the AP poll is going to have them much higher than what we've got them. This is where that, don't care what anybody says, we don't have brand bias on this program. If we do, if you think we do, that's fine. Comment somewhere on it. Oregon, as far as deserving of a ranking, I just need you to explain to me why then you would believe that they should be. I'm looking at it right now on our rankings. I'm sure that they're probably somewhere in the AP poll around 6 or 7, if I had to guess. Don't tell me, but I know you're going to talk about it here in a minute. If I had to guess. So if they're at 6 or 7, what have they done this season that you would believe that they should be ahead of Ole Miss or Georgia or BYU, Miami, Vandy, those teams that we just talked about?
They won the whiteout game.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. And it's not their fault that Penn State ended up sucking. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also not all the teams that I just said. It's not their fault either. And they actually play teams that are better than that Penn State team, and they beat them. And the only really good team that you played is the team that is our number 1 team in the country, and they dominated you on your home field. So, yes, while at the end of the season, if they beat Iowa at Kinnick, and if they beat USC, and if they beat Washington, do they play Washington in Husky Stadium?
They do. We'll move them up. We'll move them if they can win those games.
Yeah. If they win all 3 of those games, absolutely. You'll see that big, gorgeous green O with those beautiful uniforms and a guy that I'll admit it, I got an affinity for old Dan Lanning. I love me some Dan Lanning.
Man crush.
I do. And we will have Oregon jumping up these rankings. But that tells you my man crush, Dan Lanning, I've got him at 11 too in my own rankings right now because they haven't beat a soul up to this point. Number 12, Texas Tech, guns up. the Red Raiders, uh, poor Oklahoma State. They're just a punching bag to everybody right now. Just an absolute whipping boy to literally everybody. And all I got to say about Texas Tech is I know that everybody's talking about right now, they're really kind of looking a little bit ahead. The casuals are. Casuals are starting to look to that game against BYU here in a few weeks in Lubbock. Get your minds right, Red Raider fans and Texas Tech and Joey McGuire. Get that team ready because the most dangerous team in the Big 12 right now, not the best, but the most dangerous team in the Big 12, in my humble opinion, is waiting on you in the Little Apple in Manhattan, Kansas this Saturday. Kansas State, since that debacle to start the season, since the bye week, has played really good football.
That game will also be on Guess the Spread.
Okay. Well, K-State spanked TCU at home, and then they just went to Kansas and just obliterated Kansas again. I think that's their 16th year in a row that they've beaten Kansas in a rivalry game. But this road game at K-State, it couldn't be any bigger for both teams because if Kansas State's still right there squarely in the mix to compete for a Big 12 championship. Because that Arizona game that they lost earlier in the year was not a Big 12 conference game. And if Kansas State were to beat Texas Tech, they're sitting there right there now in the thick of it for a Big 12 title race. So they've got everything to play for in this game. So this is a huge game for Texas Tech. There's two huge games in the Big 12 this week. Cincy at Utah and this Texas Tech game. But yeah, Red Raiders, you said it earlier, we probably punished them a little bit too much last week for going on the road at Arizona State without their starting quarterback and losing a close game like that. But still, at this point, the talent that they've got, overall, how they've played, I think it's fair we've got them at 12. Right?
And now Will Hammond's hurt too.
Yeah. Well, I know that Morton was kind of questionable for this last game. I think they made sure just that he was going to be 100%.
Yeah.
For the game against K-State. But yeah, that's tough, man, because Morton seems like he gets hurt every week. I mean, it's just unbelievable often he's hurt. So if he goes down and Hammond's not available too, that's trouble.
And then you got Mitch Griffiths coming in.
Well, honestly, man, they're just one of those teams. It seems like that whoever the guy sitting over there waiting just comes in and plays well at the QB position. But yeah, man, huge game for Guns Up this week at K-State.
Yep. AP poll came out about an hour and a half ago, and like we said, there was not a lot of upsets and movement. I mean, the top 13 teams either didn't move or moved up or down one spot. Top 6 teams didn't move. You were right. Oregon is at 6.
Yeah,
so you were right on there.
Who's right behind them? Give me the 3 or 4 teams right behind them.
Well, I'll just say Ohio State, IU, A&M are 1, 2, and 3. Ohio State lost a couple of first. They had 60 first place votes. They had 54 this week. A&M got a first place vote. IU got 11. So Ole Miss, Georgia Tech, Vandy, BYU are the 4 teams right behind Oregon.
Ole Miss, Georgia Tech, Vandy, BYU. Again, we talked about it. Georgia Tech hasn't beaten anybody either. So whatever on that. But like Vandy, BYU, Ole Miss all have a better resume up at this point than Oregon.
Yep. Notre Dame's number 12. You got Tennessee moving up 3 spots to number 14, thanks to Oklahoma moving down 5 spots to 18 and Mizzou moving down 4 spots to 19. Virginia is at 15, which is just wild because it took 2 overtimes yesterday, guys, for our upset alert picks not to hit on the money line with North Carolina literally losing by 1 inch and Mississippi State blowing a 17-point lead that hadn't been done since 2013 by an SEC team and losing in overtime. UVA, they're 7-1. They've got the record of a top 15 team. Sorry, you're frauds. You are big time frauds.
They're frauds.
And it will catch up with you, and it may catch up with you this week.
They go across country, right?
They go across country to Cal. I know the spread of that game. It's not on Guess the Spread, but I can throw it in there if you want me to. So
I want you to, because that's actually one of the games I was looking at early as far as possibly a possible bet.
Yep. Louisville 16, Cincinnati 17. You got Texas at 20. Michigan is up to 21. They are 2 spots ahead of USC, a team that just beat them 2 weeks ago by 18. So that's funny.
USC dominated Michigan, dominated them just 2 weeks ago, and they're ranked behind Michigan.
I mean, USC was on a bye this week, and they hopped into the top 25. So they really must have impressed on that bye week. But Houston's up to 22. Props to Houston and Willie Fritz. He
Hey,
just keeps on
yeah.
getting it done. Uh, Memphis back in the top 25 at number 25, just 8 days removed from their loss to UAB. South Florida dropped out, LSU dropped out, Illinois dropped out, and Arizona State all dropped out.
Time out. Is Iowa ranked?
Iowa is currently the 20th ranked team if you factor in the other receiving votes. Washington, not ranked.
Okay, I was about to say Washington and Iowa's not ranked.
Again, we talked about it. They're just throwing in Memphis there to have a G5 team in
They
the
really
top
are.
25. But really, if you're talking about it, man, like I don't think in my personal top 25, I don't have a G5 team. They just don't belong this year. And I'm sorry if you disagree with that. If you think the G5 is something special and they should be on equal footing, like some years, maybe you got a Boise State team who's top 10 worthy, or like USF, like had a pretty solid resume. Sorry, man. Like it's not, you're not playing the same sport.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but at this point, yeah, that's what that looks like. It looks like they just said, "Here's the 25th spot. We'll reserve this spot for a G5."
Yeah. So, all right, let's finish off with a little guess the spread. Start off with big noon kickoff. Penn State at Ohio State.
Okay, I'll say Ohio State minus. I remember the last time it was this much. It's at Ohio State, right?
At Ohio State.
Buckeyes minus 23.
Buckeyes minus 20 and a half.
20 and a half?
Yeah. You can get them 3 touchdowns right now. Over under is 44 and a half. And I think if you remember, I got it a couple weeks ago at 48 and a half. So sharp.
You stole my
I would
line.
still take the under. I would still take the under 44 and a half.
Yeah,
though.
I just don't know how Penn State's going to score. They don't score usually anyway against Ohio State. But I definitely don't know how they're going to score this year against them.
Let's go ahead and we'll talk about that. Virginia at Cal. It's a 3:45 kickoff. So Virginia got lucky there. It's not a late night, Berkeley after dark game. So it's 3:45 Eastern kickoff. Virginia going on the road at Cal. Justin Wilcox.
Yeah, I know. Virginia shows you what I think of Virginia. I'm going to say what I think it should be.
Okay.
Virginia minus 2.5.
Virginia minus 4. Getting 4 points. Getting over a field goal with the Golden Bears. The algorithm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Think about it.
I'm not going to do it right now, but I'm on. But yeah, that one we might see that one pop up this week on one of our episodes.
Yep. Vandy at Texas.
There's no way Vandy's favored. Vandy was favored at home against 2.5. I'll say Texas 3.
Texas 2.5. That's 3 straight 2.5 point spread games for Vandy.
Just unbelievable, man. Before the season started, you'd have looked ahead and said Texas will only be a 2.5 point favorite at home against Vandy. Wow.
Yep. 7:30 ABC, Oklahoma at Tennessee. Heupel welcoming in his alma mater.
Tennessee minus. I'll say Tennessee minus like 5.5.
Tennessee minus 4.
Okay.
Here's one for you. This is a noon kickoff, I believe, in Dallas. Miami at SMU. SMU coming off that heartbreaking loss to Wake Forest.
Miami was around 2 touchdowns at home against Louisville. Probably won't be that much. I'll say Miami.
Miami ended up being 11.5 against Louisville.
10. Miami 10 at SMU.
Miami 10.5.
Okay.
10.5 points in Dallas. Arizona State at Iowa State. Game kind of lost a little bit of its luster with both teams losing yesterday.
Do we know if I'll say Iowa State minus a field goal. Iowa State a field goal.
Iowa State minus 3.5. Maybe the toughest remaining game for the Hoosiers. Indiana at Maryland.
I'm probably going to be way off on this one. Indiana's just killing everybody. So I'll say Indiana. I'll say what I would do, not what Vegas would do in this one. Indiana minus 21.
Indiana minus 22.5.
Indiana's just going on the road in conference play, laying a boat. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. So many points.
What world are we living in?
So many points.
All right. Cocktail party. Georgia versus Florida.
Georgia 7.5, 8 range.
Georgia 7.5.
Ooh, okay. One on the dot.
Right on.
There we go.
USC, Lincoln Riley going back into Central Time Zone. USC at Nebraska.
USC. I think USC is a lot better football team than they are, honestly. I'll say USC minus. I'll tell you what I think Vegas would do in this one. USC minus 4.5. I may have it a little bit more.
USC -6.
Okay. I think USC is better football.
Can he get
That
it
don't
done?
that does not mean they'll win the game because obviously it is a great atmosphere and stuff. I think USC is just a better football team than them. But we've seen what Lincoln Riley does when he goes to different time zones. Not good.
That game is the 7:30 NBC game, so it will be
Whoo!
at night. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be a fired up crowd at that game.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Texas Tech at Kansas State.
Such a big game. I'll say Texas Tech minus. I'm assuming Baron Morton's healthy in this one. So I want to say Texas Tech minus 6.5, 7. Around a touchdown.
Texas Tech -7.
Okay. Man, it's just climbing, getting a tutty at home. Whoo! Goodness
He
gracious.
gets a 7.5. You might have to look at it.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the final game, College Game Day has announced they are heading to Salt Lake City. Cincinnati at Utah.
Are they really?
All the Big 12 fans rejoice. They're not going to another SEC location. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. Cincinnati at Utah.
Time out. Is BYU Texas Tech next week or is there a bye week before that?
BYU Texas Tech, I believe on, well, it says it's their next game on the schedule. It's on November 8th. Yeah, it is next week. So, I mean, shoot, they may be going back to Utah next week.
No, I think it's at Texas Tech next week. So it'd be back to the Big 12, but it would be in Lubbock.
It is in Lubbock. Yeah, you're right. So they might be going back to Lubbock.
Yeah, because I thought for sure game day would be at that game, would be in Lubbock for that one.
They're not going to be at Alabama LSU, I'm afraid to say.
No, they won't. No, they won't.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
which game now? You said Cincinnati at
Cincinnati,
Utah.
Utah is their final game.
Hey, here it is. It's 6-3 on the year. It lost this past week with Iowa State, though, against BYU. But unranked teams favored over a ranked team this year. The unranked team is 6-3 as a favorite against the ranked teams this year. Utah will be favored in this game. I'll say Utah minus.
Utah's ranked now, so
Utah is ranked. That's right. Okay, never mind.
hopped in there.
Okay, I just
That was a good. That was a good little.
man. That was a
plug.
great roll. I was on a roll too. I was cooking, bro. Woo, I was cooking. Dang it. Let me cook, and I'm just messed it all up. All
But
right.
you're right. Utah is favored.
I burnt the food when I cooked it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go Utah minus. I bet they're a healthy favorite. Utah a touchdown.
6.5.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, I thought I was going to get you with a couple of those, but that's it for guess the spread. I got no early bets this week, man. I pulled the trigger on 4 last week, and they went 1-3. I ended up going like I think 4-2-1 or 4-3-1, 5-3, something like that on the week. But early bets did not help me at all, and the lines moved all in my direction too, and it just didn't pay off. So I'm gonna let it simmer a little bit. We'll be back with you on Wednesday night, Thursday morning to talk best bets. But you got anything to add right off the bat? Anything?
No,
you're
I mean
thinking about?
we might sneak in another live on Tuesday night. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how it's going this week. We might sneak in another live just to talk some conference races and CFP races and coaching, hot seats, all that kind of stuff. Things we don't get to talk about as much on these episodes. We might do that again Tuesday night live.
Yep, should be a good time. Appreciate all you guys tuning in. It's been a blast. We're 9 weeks into the season. Follow us on X, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Apple, subscribe on Spotify, share the show, like the show, comment, all that good stuff. For Lance Barton, I'm Tyler Nohe. Take care. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.